Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG, and in this video I'll be sharing with you 5 underrated commanders, and I wanted to focus on these commanders maybe because they haven't gotten enough love. They're pretty powerful, but not a lot of people may not recognize the power level of them, and overall I just wanted to share with you them because I feel like they're really good and I feel like you should give them a try. So let's kick things off with Soral Frost Giant Jarl, and this one is a pretty powerful commander even though it's a high CMC. So let's first read what he does. So for 4 green, white, and a blue legendary creature, Giant does have Ward 3 and other creatures you control have Ward 3, so let's stop right there. A lot of people have been giving a lot of buzz to Ward and how broken it is. Maybe not so much broken, but how annoying it is to just kind of add an extra cost to something when targeting it. So right there, having Ward 3 itself and other creatures you control have Ward 3 is pretty incredible. Just giving all your creatures protection from any kind of target removal is excellent. It also does have the other ability whenever it does enter the battlefield or attack, so kind of like that giant effect you'd normally see in other giants, including this one. Target creature has base power and toughness 7/7 until end of turn, or target creature has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. So for me, this is a very versatile commander. It works offensively. If you want to make a little 1/1 into a 7/7, you're more than welcome to. But if you want to go the opposite route, if you want to say, hey, my opponent has a big giant Blightsteel Colossus, and let's just make it a 1/1. So there's a lot of routes to go with this. A lot of people think of Cold Eye Selkie and making it a 7/7, drawing a lot of cards that way. A lot of people may go the Infect way. A long time ago I did make this deck and I went the Infect way, and I feel like I may have lost a couple friends going that way, but regardless of that, Soral Frost Giant Jarl is a great finisher in those band colored decks. You could go into a bleak theme if you wanted to, constantly blinking Soral so that you could go ahead and make all your opponent's creatures into 1/1s so that you could swing maybe uncontested because they don't want to swing with their creatures that are little now. Or you could go ahead, blink Soral a couple times and make all your creatures into big giant 7/7 beaters. And so for me personally, this is a great general in any deck that you want to definitely go ahead and increase the power or even decrease the power of your opponent's creatures. But let's move on and talk about another giant from a different plane called Kaldheim with Aegar the Freezing Flame. This is an excellent choice, especially for those giant focused commander decks. But let's first read what it does. So for 1 blue and a red, it's a legendary creature, Giant Wizard. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a giant wizard or a spell you control dealt damage to it this turn, you draw a card. So I feel like this is going to be excellent, mainly because it's definitely going into that giant theme, but also you can use wizards in your deck to kind of almost make it act like a super type where you're focusing on giants and wizards. And as long as you deal excess damage, you get to draw a card. What's not to like about this? I do have a budget deck with Aegar focusing on giants and basically doing a lot of excess damage so that I could get some card draw. Of course, board wipes are a very good option with this commander specifically with Blasphemous Act. If somebody has like 5 Saproling creature tokens on the battlefield off of Avenger Zendikar, and then you go ahead and Blasphemous Act, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards off of that. You could really make some great budget decks out of this. I know I don't focus on budget decks so much on this channel. I focus on high power and CDH decks, but this one can make an extremely versatile deck that focuses on basically dealing damage to your opponent's creatures so that you can get some card advantage that way. So if you haven't tried it out, make sure to try out Aegar. It's an absolute blast to play, especially in a budget deck scenario. But let's take a stroll to Dominaria United and focus on a commander that was in the pre-con product with Dahada, and that is Shadrick Soul Kindler. And this one is an excellent commander for those ETB strategies, so let's first read what it does. So for 2 red and a white, it's a legendary creature, Dwarf Wizard, and the legendary rule does not apply to tokens you control. Whenever a non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 mana. If you do create a token that's a copy of it, that token gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So there's a lot of things to unpack with this commander. I made a deck tech about this commander a long time ago, and there's a lot of things that you can do that may lead to some interesting situations. The first thing I do want to point out is the fact that it's very similar to Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, but for tokens. But most importantly, it's whenever a non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield, so any kind of permanent, whether it's a land, Even a battle, I mean, I don't think legendary battles exist. I think they're just regular battles. But legendary creatures, legendary artifacts, or legendary enchantments do count under that, and you can pay 1 and make a token copy of it. But of course, you're most likely going to be using legendary creatures, especially if they do have dice triggers. I love the Kamigawa dragons for this example. There are a lot of different avenues that you can take advantage of with this commander if you want to go into ETB themes, dice trigger themes. If you even want to go into a token theme, making the extra token copies of your legendary creatures with like Anointed Procession, or even Mondrak Glory Dominus, there are ways where we could just double up and keep doubling up on those tokens. And of course, if we do have a Warstorm Surge or a Terror of the Peaks on the battlefield, we could really amplify the damage of those creatures. So Shadrick is one of those interesting commanders that I've always wanted to build, but I haven't found the right type of strategy I wanted to do with it yet, so you can probably stay tuned. I'll probably make a deck tech maybe in the near future with this one. But let's go ahead and talk about an Elder Dragon, because we are playing Elder Dragon Highlander after all. Let's talk about Shadrick Silver Quill. So for this one, I like this one a lot, mainly because it kind of deals with politics. You are playing a 4-person game, so this is going to have different modes that will give somebody in your favor a little bit. So let's first read what it does. So for 3 white and a black, it's a legendary creature, Elder Dragon. It does have flying and double strike. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. So it does have 3 different modes. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Target player draws a card and loses 1 life, and target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. So I like this in many different aspects. If somebody is a little behind on your table, you could go ahead and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you could buff up all your creatures and then give that person a card draw and have them lose 1 life, and they'll probably be thankful for it. Or for another example, if somebody has a big creature on the battlefield and the other person doesn't have any creatures on the battlefield, you could probably give them a favor by giving them a 2/1 Inkling creature token on the battlefield so that they could block it with that big creature. So that way you can kind of weave around everybody and kind of say, hey, I did this deal with you. You need to honor your end of the agreement. Also, what's very nice about that last ability, target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. If that player doesn't have any creatures at all on the battlefield, you can just activate that mode, give it to somebody else. Since they have no creatures, they won't be putting +1/+1 counters on any of them. So there is a little funny scenarios. I don't think I've seen this ever played against me even once. It's definitely one commander I feel personally that should see a little bit more play for the politicking casual aspect. But let's go ahead and talk about the last commander of the day, and that's Yeti the Abominable. And so this is a pretty fun and powerful commander. Really snowballs into a big giant creature. Get it, snowball, because it's a snow creature, but let's read what it does first. So for 3 and 2 blue, it's a legendary snow creature, Yeti. It does have a 5/5 body, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play snow lands and cast snow spells from the top of your library. And whenever another snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay a green mana, a white mana, or a blue mana. If you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on Yeti the Abominable. And so I absolutely love this commander. I love a lot of different Yetis and Bigfoot. I think all the conspiracy theories are absolutely fun, so this one already does have points for me. Plus, you may play snowlands and cast snow spells from the top of your library, so it feels like a Oracle of Moldiah effect where you're playing extra snow lands. I mean, unfortunately, you're not playing extra lands per turn, but you are getting an avalanche of value. Get it, avalanche of value. But seriously, this is a pretty powerful commander that you could go into a Voltron theme if you do have a lot of ways where you're casting a lot of snow permanents. You may snowball into a lot more 1/1 counters to make Yeti a big giant creature. And again, if you do go into that Voltron theme, you could definitely really stack up the counters and go in a way where he could be unblockable and could swing for commander lethal damage. And so for me, this one is another very underrated commander. Not a lot of people I've ever seen play this. So this is one definitely to check out for sure. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on watching 5 underrated commanders that you should give a try yourself. And of course, these commanders are more for the aspect of I have actually never seen them play, and they've been around for the past 2 to 4 years. And so, of course, not having seen any of these creatures is kind of mind-blowing. Then again, we are seeing more and more commanders coming out every single year, so maybe they might be getting buried under the rubble. But let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts about these commanders? Is there any other commanders that are underrated in your mind? I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. With that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.